My name is Thomas. I'm 79 years old, and there are 6 words my wife said to me before she died that I hear almost every night. Thomas, we wasted so much time. She didn't say it with anger. That's what makes it harder to live with. She said it softly, almost like she was thinking out loud. 43 years. That's how long we were married. 43 years living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, raising 2 children, celebrating holidays, paying bills, building what everyone around us called a good life. And yet those 6 words sit in the quiet, like a truth I didn't understand until it was too late. We wasted so much time. I didn't know what to say when she said it. I just sat there beside the hospital bed and held her hand. Margaret had always had a calm way of speaking. Even when she said something difficult, she made it sound gentle. That night was no different. Her voice was tired but clear. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic in those small plastic cups they bring you water in. Machines hummed softly. I remember thinking that the room was too bright. Hospitals always feel too bright when someone you love is fading. She looked at me for a long moment before she said it. We wasted so much time. At first I thought she meant the illness, the months we spent going back and forth to appointments, the treatments that made her weak, the days we lost sitting in waiting rooms. But she shook her head slightly, like she knew exactly where my mind had gone. No, she said quietly, before that. Those 2 words stayed with me long after she was gone. Before that. When you live with someone for 4 decades, you think you know your story. You think you know what your marriage has been. But grief has a way of replaying the past from a different angle. And when I look back now, I can see what she meant. Margaret and I met when we were both young. I was 23, working long hours trying to build something stable. She was 21 and studying to become a teacher. She laughed easily back then, not loudly, just enough to make the room feel lighter. We married quickly. Young people often do that when they're sure about something. And for many years our life looked like the kind people admire from the outside. We bought a small house, raised 2 children, paid our bills. We didn't fight much. That's something I used to say with pride. We don't fight, I would tell people. But looking back now, I realize that a quiet marriage is not always a healthy one. Sometimes quiet means things are simply left unsaid. I was a practical man. Work came first. Providing came first. Responsibility came first. Margaret understood that. She supported it. At least that's what I believed. I would leave early in the morning and come home tired. Dinner would be on the table. The children would tell stories about school. Margaret would listen to all of us. She was good at that, listening. She had a patience I never really examined. For years I thought that meant she was content. Looking back now, I wonder if she was simply accommodating. There is a difference. Margaret used to suggest things in the early years, small things. Maybe we could take a trip this summer. Maybe we should have dinner out sometimes. Maybe we could spend more time, just the two of us. I always had reasons. Work was busy. Money needed saving. The kids had activities. Life was practical. And practicality has a way of postponing tenderness. Later became a word I used often. Later we'll travel. Later we'll slow down. Later we'll have time. Later is a dangerous promise, because later quietly becomes never if you're not careful. Years passed quickly. Our children grew up. The house grew quieter. But by then, something had already settled into our marriage. Routine. Routine is comfortable. It is also numbing. Margaret and I stopped asking each other certain questions. What do you want now? What are you afraid of? Are you happy? Those questions disappeared somewhere between school schedules and mortgage payments. Instead, we talked about practical things: groceries, bills, weather. The ordinary language of two people sharing a life, but not always sharing themselves. I thought that was normal. Most marriages around us look the same. Couples sitting quietly together at gatherings, conversations about children and work. I never noticed what was missing. Margaret never complained loudly. She was not dramatic. But there were moments I remember now with uncomfortable clarity. Moments I ignored. One evening, maybe 25 years ago, she asked me something while we were washing dishes. Do you think we talk enough? I laughed it off. We talk every day, I said. But that's not what she meant. I understand that now. Talking is not the same as sharing. And sharing requires something I didn't offer enough of: attention. Margaret gave attention easily. I gave efficiency. I solved problems. I managed responsibilities. But I rarely stopped to really look at her the way she looked at me. Time moved the way it always does, quietly. Our children moved out. We both grew older. I began thinking about retirement. That's when I started saying another word often: soon. Soon we'll travel. Soon we'll have time. But time does not slow down simply because you plan to enjoy it later. Margaret began feeling tired more often. At first we thought it was just age. Then came the doctor visits, tests, conversations that become more serious each time. The diagnosis arrived like something unreal: cancer. Suddenly the future I had postponed for decades became fragile. Suddenly all the laters disappeared. We spent months in hospitals and clinics. Those months were the first time in years that I truly slowed down. I sat beside her for hours. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just held hands. In those quiet hospital rooms, I began noticing things about her again. The way she still smiled at nurses. The way she squeezed my hand when she thought I was worried. the way she watched the window like she was measuring how much daylight was left. One night near the end, the room was very quiet, machines humming softly. Margaret looked at me with a calm expression I can still see clearly. That's when she said it. "Thomas, we wasted so much time." Not angrily, not accusing, just truthfully. And in that moment, I understood something I had missed for 43 years. She wasn't talking about our life. She was talking about the parts of it we never fully lived. But there was something else she said after that, something even harder to hear. And it changed the way I see those 43 years forever. When Margaret said, "Thomas, we wasted so much time," I thought that was the whole sentence. It wasn't. She paused for a moment, breathing slowly, the way people do when they're tired but still trying to say something important. Then she squeezed my hand. "Not all of it," she said softly, "but the important parts." That sentence settled into the room like something heavy. Not cruel, just honest. And honesty, when it arrives that late, feels sharper than anger. I sat there for a long time without speaking. There are moments in life when you realize the story you've been telling yourself about your own life is incomplete. That night was one of those moments. I had always believed Margaret and I had done well. We stayed married. We raised good children. We kept a stable home. There were no dramatic betrayals, no explosive arguments, no public scandals. From the outside, we looked like a successful marriage. But success can be measured in different ways. And Margaret was talking about something deeper than stability. She was talking about presence. The years replay in my mind now in ways they never did before. I remember the evenings she would sit beside me on the couch while I watched the news. She would start telling me about something from her day. A student who made her laugh. A story about a friend. And I would nod, half listening. Sometimes I would interrupt with something practical. "Did we pay the electricity bill? Can you grab my glasses?" I didn't mean to dismiss her, but attention is a form of love, and divided attention slowly erodes connection. Margaret never raised her voice about it. She would just grow quiet. I thought quiet meant peace. Now I understand quiet can also mean resignation. Another memory surfaces often now. About 15 years ago, Margaret suggested we take a trip, just the two of us, somewhere by the ocean. She had always loved the ocean. I remember exactly what I said. "Let's wait until I retire, then we'll really enjoy it." Retirement came, but the ocean trip never did. There was always something else. Repairs around the house, family obligations, small practical reasons that felt reasonable at the time. Practicality can disguise avoidance very well. I thought I was protecting our future, but in doing so, I kept postponing the present. Margaret understood something I didn't. Life is not experienced in the future. It is experienced in the moments you allow yourself to live fully now. The night in the hospital, after she said those words, we talked longer than we had in years. Real conversation, not about medications or appointments, about us, about our life, about what we had missed. She told me something that surprised me. I was never angry with you, she said. I was just waiting. Waiting. That word unsettled me more than anything else. How long? I asked. She smiled faintly. Longer than I should have. It's strange to hear someone say that after 43 years. But I understood what she meant. She had waited for me to slow down. Waited for me to notice the small invitation she had been offering for decades. A walk together. A quiet evening talking. A weekend trip. Small things. None of them required money or perfect timing. They required attention, and attention was something I had always promised later. She told me she didn't regret our life. That was important for her to say. We built something good, she said, but we didn't always live inside it. That sentence changed the way I see those years. We had built a house. We had built a family. But I had spent much of my life standing just outside the deeper parts of it, focused on maintaining the structure. Margaret had lived inside it. She had experienced it more fully, and she had waited patiently for me to join her there. I asked her something that still echoes in my mind. Why didn't you tell me more clearly? She thought about that question for a long time. Then she answered quietly, I thought you would see it eventually. That's the tragedy of many long marriages. Both people assume the other understands things that were never spoken clearly. Assumptions are dangerous in relationships. They replace conversation with interpretation. Margaret believed I understood what she needed. I believed she was content with what we had. Both of us were partly wrong. As the night grew later, she rested more. Her breathing slowed. But before she fell asleep, she said something else. Promise me something. I leaned closer. Don't waste the rest. Those 5 words changed the way I live now. Don't waste the rest. At 79, the rest is not a large number of years, but it is still time. And time, I have learned, is not something you measure only by quantity. It is measured by presence. After Margaret passed away the next morning, the house felt different when I returned. Not just empty, revealing. Every room held memories I had once rushed through. The kitchen where she had waited for conversations that never happened. The living room where we sat together, but often separately in our thoughts. The garden she loved to tend while I stayed inside finishing work. For months after her death, I replayed those hospital words over and over. We wasted so much time. At first, the sentence felt like a weight I could never put down. But eventually, I realized something important. Margaret had not said it to punish me. She had said it to wake me up. And what I did after that realization changed the way I carry those 43 years. Because those words did not only haunt me, they redirected me. After Margaret died, I spent a long time walking through the same rooms we had shared for decades. Not doing much, just noticing things I had rushed past for years. The way the afternoon light falls across the kitchen table. the sound the floor makes near the hallway, the small chair in the corner where she used to sit and read. It's strange what grief does. It slows you down in a way nothing else can. For the first few months, I kept hearing her words. We wasted so much time. At first, I heard them as regret. But eventually, I began to hear the other sentence she said more clearly. Don't waste the rest. That part mattered just as much. So I started doing something I should have done decades earlier. I began paying attention, real attention. I call my children more often now, not just to ask how things are going, but to listen. When they talk, I don't glance at the television or think about what I need to do next. I listen the way Margaret used to listen. I visit my grandchildren even when it feels inconvenient. I sit through their long stories about school and games and friends. Sometimes those stories wander. I let them wander. Because wandering conversation is often where real connection lives. I also started doing small things Margaret used to suggest. I take walks in the evening, not for exercise, just to notice the sky changing colors. Last spring, I finally went to the ocean, the same ocean she wanted us to visit all those years ago. I sat there for a long time listening to the waves. Part of me wished she were beside me. Another part of me understood something she had tried to tell me for decades. Life isn't meant to be postponed. There will always be work to finish, bills to pay, responsibilities waiting. But the moments where life actually happens, conversation, laughter, quiet time with someone you love, those moments disappear if you keep promising yourself you'll enjoy them later. Margaret and I had 43 years together. I used to think that meant we had done well. Now I understand that time alone doesn't measure a life. Attention does. Presence does. Love that is actually lived, not just assumed, does. Her last words still visit me sometimes, but they don't haunt me the way they once did. Now they feel more like a reminder. Not about the time we lost, but about the time that still remains. And at 79, I try my best to live inside that time instead of saving it for later. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.